All right, with 10 seconds to go, I'd like to introduce Jason Gregory, CTO architect from the Microsoft Strategic Partnerships team. Jason, take it away.
Yep. Hi, everybody. So I'm here to talk today about a little bit of kind of collaborative work that we're doing at Microsoft with the Modulus Foundation. Really, I'm going to run through just a little bit of context, a view on the kind of work that we're looking to do, next steps, and really, I'm going to try and keep it fairly short, so that we've got time for questions. So yeah, basically, for the past, well, I would say, well, a long period of time, we've been trying to look into how we at Microsoft can kind of lean in and help and do work on Modulus. My background is very much in emerging markets finance. I used to be chief architect for M-Pesa many moons ago. Worked with quite a few people in the foundation. So I had a strong interest in this opportunity for Microsoft to kind of lean in and work on some of the Modulus engineering side of things. We finally got to a position where we had an internal business case signed off effectively, which allowed us to kick off this project. So let me kind of just run through really what we're doing here. So question number one, why are we doing this work at Microsoft? You know, we're not a financial services company. We're not a bank. We never intend to be a bank. So what are the outcomes that we're seeking here? Well, Satya on a number of occasions recently has tried to emphasize our focus on Africa in general and you know, the degree of growth that we see in Africa. And as part of that, we have a new organization geared up to try and drive growth of Microsoft tools, products, Azure in Africa, with a view from anything from small businesses through financial inclusion to research. We've got development centers in Lagos and Nairobi, doing anything from work on Windows all the way through to doing mixed reality. So the Africa Transformation Office has a set of goals, and we feel that the aims of Modulus Foundation and working with our customers aligns very well with the Africa Transformation Office. We're also considering from our worldwide FSI team a portfolio of solutions which are suitable globally, and Modulus is clearly one of the kind of products or tool sets or whatever you want to call it that you know, gives us that addition to a portfolio that we can talk about with our strategic customers. We also want to make sure that we are able to engage commercially with those strategic customers when we're discussing interoperable payments globally, but you know, in Africa to begin with. And we also, by working on Modulus with the team, is we want to try and raise customer awareness of you know, the existence of Modulus and the scenarios that it can enable. And we're going to do that through a number of media. So we'll be doing some marketing. We'll be doing road shows where we kind of go and talk to some of our strategic customers about the opportunity. But really, that's kind of the headlines for us. I mean, clearly, Modulus on Azure has got a commercial angle to it from our perspective. You know, if we can get more large organizations, financial services providers, governments to run Modulus on Azure, then you know, there's the clear revenue opportunity, which forms part of, you know, the fact that we're a commercial organization. So what's the scope of the work that we're going to do? Well, firstly, we want to have Modulus running on Azure using Azure native services. So that's going to be taking some of the components out of the full kind of current deployment or current version and swapping in some of our first party database products, API manager, running on Azure Kubernetes services. The reason we want to do that is to simplify Modulus operations by really having the core software platform surrounded by a set of easily managed cloud-first, cloud-centric capabilities. We also feel that there's an opportunity to optimize costs, both in the initial deployment of Modulus and the long-term running costs at scale. We also think that there's some performance optimization opportunities, clearly, by having Modulus running using Azure native services, it aligns with our commercial goals. So the second focus area is Modulus in the Azure Marketplace. The goal with Marketplace is really to have a one-click deploy of Modulus, really simplify the process that any adopters would need to go through. And that one-click deploy will ideally have a full stack experience for a hub operator, potentially as a stretch target, a fully simulated scheme, as a very easy deploy from the marketplace. We also see that Microsoft partners have an opportunity to have their own flavor of kind of Modulus in the Azure Marketplace, and we're looking to work with a few organizations to kind of discuss those opportunities. The third focus area is Modulus on Azure Stack. So for those who don't know, Azure Stack is our technology platform that allows the use of Azure tools and software, but in an on-prem or kind of non-public cloud or even non-cloud scenario. And we have a range of different versions of Azure Stack. And the goal with Modulus on Azure Stack is to ease adoption of largely governments or financial institutions who haven't yet adopted cloud, but also for that on-prem dev test with easy deployment. Having Modulus on Azure Stack will allow very simple deployment of Modulus into those dev test scenarios. And finally, clearly, we're working with the open source community here and Modulus Foundation. So the work that we do throughout the project of moving Modulus onto Azure and all of these three areas, the work we do is, as far as we possibly can, is going to be contributed back to the foundation, back to the open source. We're going to have a bunch of very skilled technical people and architects who are working on the project. So where we see opportunities to discuss and potentially contribute to the technical architecture, we will obviously bring that back to the community. And finally, through our advocacy program that we're planning to run, we're going to effectively contribute to the awareness and advocacy for Modulus generally by discussing it with customers who we think may be potential adopters. So what are we doing? So investment from our side, from the Microsoft team, we're going to bring in some engineering resources, so hands-on keyboards to do the solid work. We're going to effectively provide some Azure credits to do some Modulus hosting for the project. And then we've got three kind of teams, if you like, that surround the project. There's a core team led by me. We've got some folks from the Azure Global team, and we've got many different product team members from Azure, anything from the Azure Stack team, Marketplace team, Azure Engineering, who are going to be investing some of their time in helping us with the project. From a collaboration perspective, kind of question, how are we going to work with the foundation and foundation members? Well, we're going to be doing some design and collaboration sessions, the first of which actually is this week, with some of the technologists who are part of the foundation. So that's to include, so Greg, for example, from Cybrain, Michael, Leslie Ann, and a number of others throughout the project. We're also going to be looking at product roadmaps and looking to see how we can bring some product marketing capability to help in terms of awareness and articulation of the product strategy. And clearly, we have to have a good understanding of where the product's going and how that will align with the work that we're doing. We're also going to collaborate on customer adoption. So we're already working very closely with Cybrin on one particular customer opportunity and getting great support from them there in terms of driving adoption in a particular project as part of our African Digital Foundry work. And then finally, once we've got to the end of the project and you know, we at Microsoft are satisfied that we've hit our targets, then we'll have kind of a joint, I'm not going to call it go-to-market, but we'll be doing some strategic customer roadshow sessions. We've done one of those internally for a small project already with help from the technical team at the foundation. We'll do those on a continued basis once we've kind of completed the project. So that's generally how we see the collaboration going. It's still early days. I'm sure we'll be doing other things and we'll have to make some shifts, but that's kind of our starting point. Okay, and final slide. So what are we actually doing? Well, right now we're looking to assign team members to the project. We're going quite narrow in terms of bringing in expertise. It's not going to be kind of a wide recruitment drive. We will kick off design sessions. I think that there are probably going to need to be several of them. First one of this week. So we'll need some knowledge transfer and advice from the technologists in the Modulus Foundation about potential gotchas or areas that we need to consider as we focus on the work. Then very practically, we're going to get on and do some engineering. We think it's going to probably take up to about 6 months to achieve our goals. And throughout that, we're going to be doing customer alignment sessions and advocacy planning with Paula, Leslie Ann and the team to kind of get those things moving. Okay, so that's very, very brief heads up on the work that we're doing. Any questions, comments, thoughts?
Hi, Jason. My name's Tom Daly. I'm somewhat new to the project, but I'm pretty familiar with a lot of the hosted Kubernetes engines. From what you're saying, and from what I saw in the IAC yesterday, the infrastructure as code, you're going to be redoing necessarily a lot of the stuff that's in infrastructure as code. And if you do it in your templates and your JSON-based templates, then there won't be any opportunity. But we'll have yet another deployment of Modulus that stands aside and yet a little bit more bifurcation. Is the idea to do it in templates rather than Terraform? Is that set in stone? Is that something you see as a commercial advantage for Azure, or is it something that's a
No, I think it was a great question. Thank you, Tom. No, we're very open in terms of how we approach this. Certainly with all of the major cloud providers, if you want to go multi-cloud, then Terraform's a great way to do that. We can also embed certain elements of the Azure Resource Manager templating technology and actually execute that from a Terraform script. So I think to be decided, the question of ARM templates versus Terraform versus scripted deployment versus whatever you want really there's no commercial advantage per se. We will have some constraints for the Azure Marketplace and Azure Stack about how we do deployments because it's got to be part of that managed capability. But definitely going to work with the team who've worked on the IAC at the foundation just to see how we can get some good synergies there and hopefully not reinvent the wheel.
That sounds great. And one, I'm going to show my recently was employed at Oracle history here. But what are you thinking of using for database? Are you I know that you've got the Azure to Oracle links in most of the data centers throughout the world. Is that something you'd actually considered?
So the goal really is not, not necessarily to replace the, I'm not sure how best to answer the question. Well, look, we've got database as a service capabilities on Azure. So we've got the MySQL as a service, we've got Postgres as a service, running purely as PaaS on Azure. So we see an opportunity of kind of swapping elements that might have typically run inside Kubernetes or as a clustered external database capability, and just employing PaaS for that. It gives a really good option around scalability, dynamic scalability where possible. So they're the kind of database pieces of work that we intend to do early on. If there are other sensible opportunities to look at kind of other database technologies and bring them in, you know, as part of the project, completely open to that, and we'll take suggestions from anybody in the community. But you know, point number one is taking out the kind of specifically deployed ones and swapping them for our PaaS services.
I had a couple of others, but I'll wait for other people. Thank you very much. That sounds good.
You're welcome.
So I'm going to ask this, Rob Reeves. Sorry, I'm going to ask a side question. I'm quite happy for you to say no, don't know, don't know the answer, because this is a strange one. Kenyan legislation under data protection has basically said that all financial services must be hosted in Kenya in country data centers. You know, as Azure, you're one of the strongest and most dominant in Africa. If other countries follow suit, is that where, I'm sorry, I don't know your products, but is that where your on-prem solution is aimed at to help people in that space? Or do you have specific plans? You know, you don't need to answer that because that's pandering to a government as well. Equally, not what I'm asking you to do, but as a general question, you know, if others follow suit, it's going to be a nightmare in Africa. But clearly, hosting and having simplified resources will be a key requirement.
Yeah. As a company, you can imagine, you know, our drive is for public cloud wherever possible. And, you know, you could potentially have government cloud and these other specialist versions of kind of public Azure. We know that that's not going to happen everywhere, and that's why Azure Stack and the multiple versions of Azure Stack, actually, depending on your scale, that's to be able to take these opportunities to deliver the managed Azure experience, but have those managed assets actually on premises in the country. So yeah, that's the primary purpose for Azure Stack, and we're hoping to leverage those Azure Stack capabilities as a Modulus hosting option.
So given this gap, you're looking at using the Azure Kubernetes service. Is it AKS for Azure?
Yeah.
So I noticed, well, I haven't been able to glean that there's too many other Modulus deployments on the hosted Kubernetes services. And yet the great advantage for doing that is that then all the control plane is secured. That becomes the cloud provider's issue, and it vastly simplifies security for the end user. Mm-hmm. But can you or anybody answer, is the cost, I haven't done is the main reason for not using the hosted Kubernetes engines, is that one of cost? And do you see that as an issue here if you're going into cost sensitive areas? Does the question make sense? Like versus putting a
I can guess from my perspective, and I guess we've got lots of other folks in the foundation who can probably answer better than I can. The principle behind Modulus and having this common open source deploy anywhere mechanism is that you get the broadest reach with the fewest number of variations in terms of the deployment stack and the deployment scripts that you need to put around that stack. So I think it's making it available anywhere in the same format is why why we're deploying onto why you guys are deploying onto effectively infrastructure as code. Clearly the hosted services like EKS for Amazon and AKS for us gives all of the advantages you've said, and a bunch of things around monitorability, auto scale, cost optimization. There's a stack of things around that from our perspective.
So cost optimization, my understanding was that it's the cost that's meant that this has not been adopted yet. Is that maybe a discussion? Because maybe there's an opportunity here to do something with Modulus and the Kubernetes engine, because of those great advantages around security, reliability, the whole bit that Azure then owns. It just vastly simplifies for the customer. Is that something that would be considerable into different pricing or different discount schemes in terms of Modulus going into different markets? And you don't need to answer. I just want to seed the thought. I'm not asking you to make financial decisions on the fly, but I just wanted to seed that thought, because it seems to me that from every discussion I've had, the hosted Kubernetes engines are a cost impediment, and yet a huge advantage if we could actually use them for the project or get adoption for them for the project.
So why are you seeing? You mean like AKS is a cost impediment?
That's my understanding. Somebody correct me if I'm wrong. Yeah.
Yeah, no, so I mean, the AKS clusters, you can effectively take them from, you can choose the level of machine that you need, you can choose how many nodes you want in the cluster. So you can go anything from kind of an AKS hosted dev test, which is teeny tiny and very cost effective, up to full-blown kind of managed Kubernetes. And actually, typically you're paying for the underlying virtual machine resources that are making up the cluster nodes. So I'm not really understanding, perhaps I'm missing something, but I'm not understanding why it would be a cost impediment.
I just want to give a heads up that we a minute past the hour. Tom, do you have any last comments to wrap up that question? If not, I can pass it back to Jason to wrap the session up.
Okay. So please, folks, that's it. I haven't got anything else to say. If there are any questions, as I said, we're going to be engaging with the folks at the foundation starting this week. Please feel free to reach out to me. I didn't do the sensible thing and put my email address on, but I'll join. I'll send my details, or I'm sure that Simeon and the team can share my email. Please feel free to email me with any other questions, or if you want to reach out on a one-to-one basis. I think that clearly the best case is if we route things through kind of existing channels, but I'm quite happy to chat to anybody. So thanks for your time, everyone.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Jason. I'm glad to have you join us. I'd like to invite everyone. Sorry, I need to make a few changes here. Just before we go into the next session, I'd like to invite everybody to take a screenie. If you do not mind, please unmute your videos, just so that we can see your smiley, happy faces. I believe this is Rob's favorite part of the convening. So it's really great to see you all and all your smiling faces. Oh, look at all those people. Excellent. Thank you so much for sharing your time with us. Waiting for a few more people, then we can take a nice little screenie. Oh, this is great. This is excellent. I will wave back at all of you since encourages a smile here and there. Glad to see you all. Thank you all so much for joining us. Really happy to see all your faces, and it's good to know that there's people behind the names and the icons on Slack and on Zoom. Thank you all so much. I think we've got the screenie, Kathy or Alyssa. Awesome, we have one. Thank you all. I will give you 6 minutes break, and then we will head to our next session with Michael and Leslie Ann on small asks and changes. And then shortly after that, Lewis and Sam will give us updates on documentation, onboarding, and sandbox. So 6 minutes, and then we'll be back at the after that with Michael and Leslie Ann. Thanks.
I was going to ask before you disappear, Simon, who are those people on the LinkedIn screening? On the LinkedIn update you put out this morning, I saw that screen. Who are these random people? I recognize nobody. I thought, what's going on?
We'll update the new. We'll update the post
with this one. Excellent. Cheers.